Darryle Powell. We're going to go ahead and introduce you, sir. He joined the Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities team in November of 2019, following a long career at Lee County Youth Development Center, serving in his last position as the coordinator of the Intensive Residential Service Program and a team member of the Professional Development Department. Prior to that position, he served as an executive manager of several programs, and he is one who envisions excellence in the delivery of human services. Darryle is also a team leader and a peer reviewer for the Council on Accreditation, the COA, which is an international independent nonprofit human service accrediting organization. He has also served on various board of directors and committees, including Youth Advisory Committees, Alabama Respite Coalition, HCBS Task Force, ADMH Division of Developmental Disabilities Coordinating Committee, ADAP Advisory Council, UCEDD Consumer Advisory Council, People First of Alabama, and the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities. Is that all, Darryle?
More than enough, more than enough.
He is also a graduate of the Tuskegee University and Troy University and is married to Tamara, and they have 2 grown sons and 3 adorable granddaughters. He enjoys spending free time fishing, gardening, spending time outside, and cheering for his alma maters, TU and Troy University. Welcome so much, Darryle. I'm very excited to have you on here today to share your expertise and this program and preparing for natural disasters. 'Tis the season, right? Alabama is no strangers to natural disasters and all kinds of fun weather things. So this is very timely information. I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time out of your schedule to educate the caregivers in Alabama about this very important topic. So one more thing from me, if you have questions for Darryle, please feel free to enter them into the chat. I will be monitoring that. This training is recorded, and so if you miss something and you kind of want to go back and watch it or you want to share it, it will be posted on our YouTube sometime early next week, okay? All right, so without further ado, Darryle, I'll go ahead and pass the mic on to you.
Thank you, Miss Jenny, and I'm glad to be here. I'm excited, just so excited because when it comes to educating and informing our people, I get really, really excited. And preparing for natural disasters is a project that is really near and dear to me. It's very important because really when we prepare, it helps save lives, and I'm just excited just to share information with you all. And we know, like you mentioned earlier, that Alabama is no stranger to disasters such as tornadoes, and it's always good to prepare before it happens. Sometimes we, as a people, do not prepare until it happens, and sometimes that can kind of be an issue. We know that we're never going to be 100% prepared, but we do want to start thinking about um, disasters and preparing before they happen. So with that said, I do want to pause a little bit and just kind of ask the question to the group. Has anyone been impacted directly or indirectly by a disaster? And if so, you're more than welcome to share just a few minutes on how you were impacted and how did it, how did you deal with it? Because I try to kind of get, a good feel of who we're talking to. And I know I can't see everyone on the screen, but, um, can we pause a little bit and just kind of see who's been impacted and of course, how did it impact you? We don't all have to go at the same time.
You can feel free to unmute or enter it into the chat.
Yeah. Why? Well, we'll move because, sometimes I know sometimes I get a little teary-eyed because I know you all remember when the tornado came through Dallas County a couple of years ago. Some of our board members were impacted. Some even lost their homes. And then, of course, I live in the Macon County area, and when the tornado came through Beauregard some years ago, some of my folks and friends were impacted there. When it hit Tuscaloosa some years ago, Many of my friends and family members were impacted there as well. So we do know that, tornadoes do happen, and not just tornadoes. When you think about disasters, you think about floods, hurricanes, fires, any type of disaster that's going to impact the lives of our people. Um, in 2018, there were a total of 56 tornadoes in the state of Alabama. Can we have a guess of how many tornadoes touched down in Alabama in 2025? An educated guess of how many tornadoes in 2025?
Would say about four, I think. I'm not sure.
About four?
Yeah, yeah. Or is it more?
Let me see how many more guesses we get.
I think it's like over 200 or something really big.
Yeah.
We got
Uh,
96, 20, 75, 26, 200. All that's in the chat.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Well, all right. Good guess. Well, in 2025, it was total of 92. 92 in 2005. So if we go back from 2018, you had 56 in 2018. 2019, you had 94. 2020, you had 82. 2021, you had 92. 2022, we had 124. 2023, we had 94. 2024, 81, and of course 2025, 92. So it has been an elevation in tornadoes since 2018. Um, and as I do research from time to time, according to some of the statistics or research that I see, the valley that those tornadoes typically go through are shifting. And I'm not sure if that is the cause or one of the reasons, but the valley is shifting. Um, so we do want to prepare, do our best to prepare because, sometimes you have no warning, they just pop out. I think last year I was sitting in my living room and like I said, I live in Notasulga and you know, maybe 5 miles from my house. One of a good friend in Notasulga was impacted. He lives in a mobile home, and it kind of damaged his mobile home, and it was like within a 10-minute span, and it was gone. So, we do want to kind of help prepare and educate our people. And when we think about people living with disability, we oftentimes, if we're living with a disability, are devastated the most when it comes to disasters. So um, on this slide, you see the front cover of Emergency Planning Guide, which I think Ms. Jenny mentioned it earlier. Um, and this is a guide that we as a council and a state team has developed. And we do have hard copies, and the electronic copy is circulating, could be circulating if you would like an electronic copy. But that's the front copy of the page, and it is a fillable. So I thank Ms. Cheryl for her feedback. We were able to make it a fillable document, so you don't necessarily have to handwrite, if you so choose to type in it. So we do have that available as well. Planning and safety, when we think about it, as I cannot stress the planning piece enough because sometimes we as a people don't really plan. And when it happens, it's like we're trying to figure out what we need to do. So it's almost like we should be kind of proactive when it comes to disaster. So the guide will help people with disability prepare for natural disasters like tornadoes, hurricanes, and floods. So just being ready can help really be safe, help you be safe, as well as save a life. So emergency can be scary, and we know that, especially if we have medical needs using some type of mobility device or depending on help from other people. So many emergency plans really don't include some of these things. So we really want to make sure we get the information out. The guide really focuses on all of those things that we're going to share today. So you can really stay safe and be ready as much as you can when a disaster strikes. Knowing the risk, Alabama faced disasters like tornadoes, like I mentioned earlier, floods. If you recall, if you're living in the Central Park, Montgomery area, a few years ago, it was a flood in East Chase. And it was kind of devastating because people wasn't expecting it. And, cars underwater. So, that's in that area, I haven't seen it in my time. So, it was scary. Hurricanes, hot waves, winter storms, and of course, windstorms, which all can damage homes, roads, as well as cause other dangerous issues in our lives. Um, in the handbook, if you do not have the handbook, and once you receive the handbook, you will see that it is a working document. So what I did to prepare for this, I just pulled some of the documents from the handbook to put in a slide. So on one of those pages, it kind of asks you to think about these questions, and disasters most likely to affect your area. So you really kind of think about, where you are. Some areas get, tornadoes pretty frequently, and some may not as frequently. So in the handbook, you have an opportunity to document, you know, disasters that's more likely to affect your area, whether it be a tornado, windstorm, snowstorm, or what have you. So you can do that. And also it gives you an opportunity to think about the closest ADA accessible shelter that's near your location. Um, Sometimes if, you're waiting until it happens and you don't really know where the ADA accessible shelter is, that may hinder some time. So thinking about those things, thinking about your county emergency number. So the guide gives you an opportunity to not only identify your county management agency, but also put the contact information, the address, as well as phone numbers, which is a very important information when it comes to preparing for a disaster. Um, Thinking about mobility, we there's an area where you can also document, keep your evacuation route clear. Think about those things because sometimes if we're in a cluttered environment and a disaster happen, there it may be some hindrance there. You may not be able to escape or get to an area of safety as quick enough. So keeping your evacuation route clear, whether that be in your home, whether you have a place to go, going to that place, just kind of keeping it clear so that you can have a safe way to get there. Plan for stairs if elevators don't work. So if you're in a place where you have elevators, you have to consider that if that elevator is not working, what are you going to do? So planning for stairs, know what the stairs are. Store extra wheelchair batteries if you have them or chargers. Sometimes people don't have those, but it's something to think about and consider, especially when a disaster happens. If all possible, lightweight manual wheelchair as a backup. Now we know some of this may not be, everybody may not be able to have a backup, but if it's possible, trying to, make sure you have some type of other avenue or backup if your wheelchair if you use a wheelchair and you need a backup. Um, some wheelchairs have tires that are inflatable. So keeping some type of patch kit or some kind of sealed air product to inflate your tire if you do have a wheelchair with tires that you can inflate. So those are some of the things you can consider. Extra inner tubes as well. Um, and also thinking about someone to help practice, help you keep your evacuate, practice evacuation. Um, because sometimes if you don't exercise those skills, you kind of lose it sometimes. So you want to kind of practice it, even if it's just a good day, you know. I think sometimes the schools typically have these drills, and those drills are helpful. Sometimes people look at them like, we got to do this again, but believe it or not, those drills can really save a life. So just practicing um, as you can, and getting someone with you, because it can save your life, your family member life, your friend life, your coworker, whomever that may be. Considering communication, which is a huge barrier from time to time, we really want to think about communication and think about our ways of communicating. Um, Sometimes we may have to carry a card that explains how we communicate. If we have a certain way to communicate, just having some kind of way of sharing that, just in case, someone is not aware of how you communicate. Um, Extremely helpful for law enforcement, first responders, because oftentimes these people are the first to come, first on the scene, so to speak. So if you have some way of carrying a card to explain how you communicate, that would be so helpful for those who may come to your rescue. Um, if you're having hearing issues or challenges, keeping some type of text or video relay set up, or some type of flashing or vibration alerts turned on. So you can have someone to kind of assist you, or they would know, how to help you, so to speak. Keep written or picture instructions in your kit. So some type of instructions that you have for yourself or your family member, just kind of keeping it inside your kit with your guide, so that way you could, you know, get the service, get the help much, much quicker than if you don't have that information. Um, in that guide, like I said earlier, you can document, type, or what have you. So I pulled this information out because it is a plan that you could go in there and complete for yourself. How do I explain my communication needs? And you have a little box where you can just go in there and just write or type. So that way you can refer to it, refresh yourself, refer to it, pre-write emergency text messages or emails. You know, what would you do if an emergency happens? You know, what would that text look like? What would that emergency email look like? Communication boards or picture cards, and indicating where they're kept in your house or in your location, in your home, in your residence. So that way you all have this information at hand in your guide. List and there's another little box at the bottom that said list where the people who how to communicate with you. List, the people that how they're going to communicate with you. So indicating that information in this guide. So for some reason, if someone else had access to your guide, for some reason, they could see, all that you have planned out before anything happens. Another huge one, very important one, medical needs. Um, Sometimes we don't really think about, we may be down low and really not thinking about, something happening, but try to at least pack 7 to 10 days of medicine and supplies. Include a list of your medication and your doctors, as well as your allergies, if you have allergies. All of this information you can document inside the guide, keep it in there. Label all the medical devices that you have. Trying to make sure it's labeled so that way you or anybody else are able to identify your devices. Plan for backup power for equipment. So, like I said, some wheelchairs may operate off of battery. So just kind of making sure you got a backup plan. Same thing with your cell phone devices, your electronic devices. Try and have a backup plan to have it charged. Sometimes people rely on cell phones in regards to receiving the alerts and things of that nature, but sometimes cell phones go out. You know, maybe a couple of years ago, we had a tornado that come through Notasulga area. It wasn't anything that was like one of those huge ones, but um, my battery on my cell phone had like one, and it was like, tornadoes come through a lot of times in the middle of the night. So when I look at my phone, I had one bar. So I'm like, I wish I could have charged it up. So sometimes we really have to make sure that we, spend that extra effort to make sure that your phones are charged. And even better with weather radios and things of that nature. So I think I got that in here, but just kind of making sure you have backup power for your equipment. Um, When you think about your medical needs plan, there is a form in there, and it gives you an opportunity to uh, indicate your medications, your amount of the dosage that you're taking, any type of allergies that you have. Um, it gives you an opportunity to list your the doctor's phone numbers as well. Even thinking about your medical devices. Some people may have a CPAP, some type of oxygen tank, or some other medical device. It gives you an opportunity to list that in that guide as well. And as of course, earlier I mentioned a backup power plan, some, battery, portable charger, I know everybody don't have access to a generator, but those are some of the things to consider. I think when the tornado came through Bibb County, I think it was Bibb County a few years ago, and we had gotten calls about how can the council get purchase generators, and of course, our council don't do direct. We can't go buy generators. We can't go buy wheelchairs and things of that nature. So we spent some hours trying to um, provide resources to those individuals who call for generators. But these are some of the things that we really should consider and think about when it comes to disasters. There's no place that's excluded from a disaster in the state of Alabama. So just kind of thinking about these things. All right. Am I at the pace is okay for everybody? I want to make sure that I'm not losing anybody. We good? Because I can't see everybody. So I just want to make sure, pause and make sure we're good. I'm not going too fast. I'm not going too slow. So thumbs up or something.
I
Okay.
think you're
Hey, you
doing,
good? You
yeah,
good
you're
here?
good.
You
Great, great,
good?
great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Access to emergency services.
Darryle,
Yes, yes.
Darryle, just very quickly, the new grant for Alabama Respite for the next 2 years will
Mhm.
have very limited funding for a caregiver who has experienced a direct emergency related to weather, fire of the house, any kind of emergency preparedness or emergency event. And so if it's not covered by EMA, Red Cross, and your traditional, or it's too long a process, like you need immediate replacement of medications and you cannot find a funding source, you can contact the Alabama Respite staff. And if we can try to assist you, we will, with some very limited funding for anything that you're impacted, like temporary ramp for your in-laws trailer that you weren't not expecting to have to live at until you can get permanent housing. So just let you know to call Jenny or Tracy or anyone on the staff, and Jenny can give information after the presentation maybe on how to reach out if you are directly impacted, how we might be able to help
Yeah, great, great.
for the
Thank you.
next 2 years.
Great. That's great news to have here. So it is always good to hear that because, sometimes we as a people don't really know. And I'm glad you brought that up too, Shara. Even with FEMA, when it comes to FEMA, we had this situation in Macon County a little while ago um, um, when when it hit that area, some of the people had got impacted and they got, was devastated, homes damaged, what have you. And, FEMA was a little bit slow with some things that they needed to do, not because of FEMA, but there are some guidelines and things that people have to do in order for FEMA to step in. And that's local government, state government, and all of these entities. And even with the individual, I've been on panels, emergency management panels with FEMA on various times. And some of the things that were highlighted with me in those conversations was to, you know, have a before and after picture, any kind of documents that we can have when something happened that will help the case is better than not having anything. And so I try to highlight that from time to time because people feel like, oh, well, FEMA this and FEMA that, but we really got to make sure that we all have a part to do. So, just take pictures from time to time, So if something happens, then you can take a picture when it happens, and then you can kind of say, okay, this is what it was, and this is what it is now. And just any kind of documents that you can have to show that it has impacted your life. So thank you, Cheryl. And I didn't mean to get off on that, but it was a appropriate time to share that. So, because people in Macon County was like, panicking and freaking out because, they could not get certain things. All right. Access to emergency services. We do encourage people to sign up for Smart 911 or just your county registry. Smart 911 is also an agency that we work with in regards to this grant. So signing up, and that really helps first responders get to you faster. So it is a tool to have, something thinking about. Know what shelters are ADA accessible, and I think I mentioned that earlier. And ask how your county helps people with disabilities during emergency. So these are things that we could look at before it happens. So you may have a person that you can contact. You may have someone um, that can answer these questions, but making those connections before something happens. So that way, you've already made a network. You've already gotten some questions answered. So you'll know what they do and what they can't do. All right. And that next slide really is a flyer that we did. And, we also had a work with WSFA to do the weather guide, and some of you may have seen the weather guide that WSFA typically produce and provide. This is one of the ads that were in there from our council, and it encouraged people to sign up for Smart 911. So if you go to emergencyprofile.org, you should be able to sign up. They, ask you a few questions where you have to sign up, but I think that's important to have and have access to, because the emergency response team can really, really have a smoother and quicker route in helping serving the community or you. So be ready, stay safe, and get help faster. All right. And of course, I mentioned register with Smart 911. That was the flyer. List all your local county disability emergency registry you signed up for. So all of this can go inside your guide. You have a space for all of this. List any local county disability emergency registry that you have signed up for. If you want to sign up for more than one, that's all good. List of your ADA accessible shelters near you. So I know I mentioned this earlier, but there's a particular place in your guide that you can complete. So you have it documented or typed or however you want to have it done. FEMA text code. This is a code that you can save to your phone. And, you can text this code, and it's a FEMA text code, emergency preparedness tool that you can have in your tool bag as well when it comes to emergency situations. All right. Making a plan. It's all about this guide, just making your own plan, making it unique to your needs. Choose 2 to 3 trusted people you can help that can help you. It's always good to have someone on your side that can be a trusted person or people for your need, for your benefit. I know you can't trust everybody, but at least choosing your people, your 2 to 3 people that you can trust, and identify those. Put them on your in your guide. Share your plan with them. You know, make sure that they have your information just in case something happened and you have a team member or a partner that can help um, you in your situation. Give them your medication list. And that's why I say it has to be a trusted person that you really can trust, because everybody can't have access to your medical and all of that good stuff. But if you got a trusted individual or people that you can trust, then it would be great. Set check-in time during the bad weather. So if there's bad weather, you know, try to check in, whether it be text, phone call, or however you communicate, just on each other. And that's a good practice anyway. And I know if we have, um, you know, uh, family members who are up in age, where you do try to do extra calling and things of that nature. So just check in. That's always good to do. Um, List your support network. Um, your trusted helpers, their phone number. So there's an area in your guide that you can do all of this on. So just wanted to kind of highlight and bring that out. And in regards to your supply kit, emergency supply kit, I often times highlight, start with the get 10. And of course, this is it, the get 10. You got your water, your food, your can opener, your canned goods, your can opener, medication, your first aid kit, flashlight. And even with the first aid kit, oftentimes people don't have first aid kit. I know I would probably venture out to say, um, when I talk to people in regards to emergency preparedness, a lot of them don't have a first aid kit. But it's important to have a first aid kit and keep it checked, keep it stocked. And it doesn't have to be a huge first aid kit. It can be something, small to medium size or whatever you could have in your possession, but just a first aid kit, flashlight, um, radio, clothing. And oftentimes with the radios, a lot of the weather station gives out weather radios. Part of this grant I think we purchased about 200 weather radios. And of course, through about 4 or 5 conferences that we've had, they were gone. And they were the most expensive uh, equipment that we purchased for the uh, with the grant money. Flashlight, we still have a lot of those. They're small, they're not huge, but they're small enough to provide some type of light. And we felt the need to get those. If you all remember when the flood went through Texas, some of our colleagues, we were in communication with some of our colleagues in Texas, and they was talking about the difficult issues that they were having just locating people. So we thought about those small, those flashlights, and they're small, but they can put off a good amount of light for someone to see you. Also, you're thinking about clothing, the clothes that you're gonna need in your emergency kit, personal care items, things like that. And another huge important area is your documents, your important documents. Just having those things in your plan, in your packet, and then list other things that you might pack. Now, you can't take the whole house with you, but you can kind of think about other things that you might need to take with you or have ready at hand during the emergency disaster. All right. And, where you're keeping your kid at should be documented, date you last checked it. So if you're checking it, often, and I think somewhere in this slide, it talks about at least twice a year. And then it has a space where you can date the next time you have to check. So you can kind of have a check and balance. If you checked it on January the 16th, then if you're going to check it 3 months later, the 16th of that third month, special items that you might add to your kit and the additional items for 7 to 10 days. Now, of course, we know you're not taking the whole house, or you can't take the whole house and things of that nature, but just kind of thinking about those things that you might need, that you might use to help you in preparing. When I used to do trainings in the youth services with the staff, I used to do this task where, they had to use a bag to, just kind of thinking about a particular bag, or if you had to take 1, 2 items, something happened, what would it be? And, some people said nothing, and some people said certain, they'll get this, and this, but just thinking about those things, because you just never know what you're gonna be faced with. So having a plan to help yourself and your family members and others. Um, this may not apply to everybody, but for those who may have pets, this is something to think about. Thinking about your pet, your service animal, pack your food, for your service animal, your water, your leash, your records, ID tags, thinking about all of these things. Also keeping a photo of your animal, your pet. Um, Check shelter rules. Some shelters may have specific rules, but also keep in mind that service animals are protected by law. So, if that comes up, then of course you do have um, some grounds to work with, because service animals are protected by law. Keep gear with your kit, and for your pet, and make a plan for your pet, just like you. You know. Because y'all know, and it's been what, 20 something degrees in some areas, and sometimes that's not good for your pet. So just kind of making a plan for your pet. All right, think we're getting close to the end. Helpful resources and contact. In the guide, I think these areas you would be able to, I think, click, especially on the electronic link. You can actually hit the link and it'll go to that web page or what have you. But these are some of the things that you can kind of think about: accessible shelters and emergency help. And you can just Google, community storm shelters near you or in your area. You can also text shelter plus your zip code to that FEMA code that I mentioned earlier. Contacting your local emergency management agency. Um, all of these things are good. When you got FEMA, you're looking at your emergency alert apps, your Smart 911, your FEMA app, Red Cross emergency app, and then of course over here we do have our website listed in a few other organizations that will be able to provide some type of resources or guidance to emergency disasters. So those are some of the things to kind of think about in this guide. And don't forget, planning and safety. And of course, some of these things I've already talked about. Check your kit at least twice a year. Replacing expired food, water, medication. Make sure you're checking your dates, your medical information, your contacts. Update that information. If you change doctors, if you change locations, things of that nature, making sure that information is up to date. And practice routines and communications with your support network, the people that you're working with in your circle. Just practice that stuff, because if you're not practicing it and then it happens, then you may lose some time. So just kind of making sure that we are doing those things. And that last one is our contact information. We've got a 1-800 number. And I think as of this week, it was reported this week, that our 1-800 number has been having issues. So I put in a work order to have that corrected. So hopefully that will be corrected. But in that first slide, you have my email and phone number as well. So, and of course, you got our website at the bottom. I think that's it. Any questions? Thank you for your attention. I think that may be it for us. Any questions? Jenny, did I miss anything in the chat box?
Nothing in the chat, but while our guests are gathering their thoughts, I did want to let everyone know I did pin in the chat box the fillable principal guide that Darryle referenced. But if you do want a hard copy of that, I will add Darryl's contact info into the post survey that I'll send you so that you can get a hard copy sent to you. Just make sure you put your email address in the chat, because if you don't do that, I won't get it, and then I won't be able to send you anything. But thank you so much, Darryle. This is incredibly informative. And I know for me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of people, preparation is great for any anxieties we may feel about these kind of things. It can be very scary, and having something set up prior to, hopefully you'll never need it, but if you do, it does definitely help you sleep at night knowing you have at least a plan in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the tornado went through, the southern, not too well, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, we didn't have helmets. My kids that were playing football, they had been stopped playing football and the helmets were gone. So my wife was panicking. So we got up that next day and went and found helmets. I don't know if I wanted to pay them out because they were a little costly, but we found helmets. So that's some of the things that we have to think about as well.
Definitely.
Darryle,
Right.
this is Cheryl. I'm sorry. I wanted to mention that when Katrina came through, there were some individuals in the care of a provider, not their family, and they were evacuated quickly in the emergency. And then it was very difficult for the family to even, communicate or locate where they were later. Particularly like if they're in a facility and the entire facility goes to a whole nother community. So I'm just want to encourage everyone that if, like when the tornadoes came through Huntsville, one time we had all the cell phone towers were wiped out. So there was no way to communicate and no power for a week or more. So I encourage the caregivers to think of a contact or a place to go as if you have no way to communicate. And it might be like a family member in another part of the state that would not be impacted. So if you could get to a phone, you could do a check-in, or maybe some of the Facebook posts, they'll post a storm check-in if you're on Facebook. But just a plan where or how you're going to hook up later, or what you want your caregiver to do in the case of an emergency, where to evacuate, so that they're going to this shelter, and make sure that care provider knows where this document is in case you're not there to direct them, so that they always know, grab this is the location to go to and what to do, so that they're well informed as well.
Yeah, very important, Cheryl. Thank you. That's very important. So, yep. I think they have a lot of that going on in Texas with that flood as well.
Right. And just to let everyone know, because you may already know, Jenny is accepting referrals as we speak. So if you have any anxiety about storms, storm preparedness, or if you are affected by, an emergency event and you feel like you need to talk to someone, please reach out to her, whether it's an informal chat or you really need counseling going forward. She is there to help and assist you. So please reach out to Jenny, and it can be a simple phone call, informal chat, but she's a great resource as well.
Thank you, Cheryl. All right, do we have any questions for Darryle before we close today? You can either enter them in the chat or unmute. And if you come up with a question later, you want to email it to me, I can always forward it along as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Jenny, this is Charlotte.
Hey, Charlotte.
Hi. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I really appreciate this class today because when I was caregiving for my husband, one of the scariest things that I went through was that oxygen machine. When you are hooked up to the electric and then you have to hook up to your manual, you get, well, not you, but me. I got bumfuzzled. I was scared because I was looking anytime when the storm gonna hit, is it gonna hit here? And my house is not set up to where I could move his bed into the bathroom. So I'm trying to move his bed away from the window. And it's just so much can go through your mind and what you have to do when you have a person that is in the bed. And another thing that I think is good for people to know, if they don't already know, let your utility company know you have someone on oxygen just in case the power is out. Your service will hopefully get connected up first, one of the first. So this is very good training to have because it's a lot of things that come in play when it actually comes. You can think of all kinds of stuff, but when it actually comes and you're faced with it, you need this information to rely on. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. I always appreciate you coming on the calls and giving us your experience and your wisdom. So thank you so much. All right. Well, one more time, if you all are interested in receiving a hard copy of this information, please make sure you put your email address in the chat and I will send you the information on how to get that. Also, I will be sending that post survey. So if you're interested in receiving that $25 stipend, please make sure you fill that out within 24 hours. And also, Darryle will have some survey questions for you as well if you're interested in participating to give him his feedback for his reporting and all that fun stuff we get to do behind the scenes. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Special thank you to Darryle Powell. This information is literally life-saving. I hope no one will ever need to use it, but if we do, I'm glad we have it. So if there's anything else you'd like to add, Darryle, before we close today?
Thank you for having me. I hope this information helps. And I thank you for the comments and all of the great work that you all do. So, we're very thankful for you all because you all do a lot of the groundwork. You're in the trenches, so to speak. So we thank you for all that you all do. And Ms. Cheryl.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, everyone.
Jenny, I'd like to just add one thing. We'd like to thank Darryle and let the audience know that the Alabama Council for Developmental Disability is the original funder of Alabama Lifespan Respite. And we've been blessed to collaborate with them all these years. So thank you again, Darryle, and thank you for your council having the vision to support caregivers and their needs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything we can do.
Yes. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Take care of yourselves this weekend. Drink your water, take your naps, get you some sunshine if it ain't too cold. And hopefully I will see you all next week, okay? All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.